Hello, everyone. My name is Gitika Gorthy, and today I am very honored to be interviewing a very special space champion, Miss Caitlyn Cope. Miss Cope started at community college in 2013 after high school and slowly got into STEM. After taking an astronomy class and seeing Northrop Grumman building the James Webb Space Telescope, Miss Cope was hooked and knew she was wanting to become an aerospace engineer. She transferred to UC Irvine in 2017, where she further pursued her passions and was on the board of Society of Women Engineers chapter there. Currently, she works at Northrop Grumman building satellites for NASA's Joint Polar Satellite System. I'm so excited to be able to understand Ms. Cope's unique journey on a deeper level. So welcome, Ms. Cope. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to inspire the next generation.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, before we get into understanding your journey into the space industry in more depth, could you tell us more of your typical day? What do you currently do and how does it run?
Absolutely. So I'm currently an integration and test engineer at Northrop Grumman. So I work with them to build satellites for NASA. Basically, it's a NASA program, that JPSS program. It's a weather satellite system. My day to day is making sure that the satellite works before we send it out to space. So there's a whole other group of people who do the designing work and who do like those initial stages. By the time that it gets to me, it's pretty much built and it's in a clean room, and I'm creating test procedures, and then executing those test procedures to make sure that everything's functioning properly, making sure everything is connected, and just, we want to make sure as soon as we send it out to space, it's going to work and do its job. So that's a typical day for me.
Wow, that's exciting. I'm sure there's not like one day that's exactly the same. So that must be very exciting to be a part of every day. So what is the most, because you've been working on these satellites, you probably have come across some really cool projects, or maybe while you were studying. So what is the most exciting project or research that you've worked on?
Yeah, absolutely. So my job has definitely had its perks of being pretty exciting working with satellites, but my kind of true love and passion lies in rockets and rocketry. And so for me, I think my most exciting project that I worked on was my rocket project in college, where I got to work with a team of anywhere between like 30 to 60 people at a given time, and we were working on a liquid rocket engine. So it's a lot bigger scale than a lot of the rocketry stuff that you typically hear about in college, but it's actually a liquid rocket. So kind of think of like 20 to 25 feet, about 2 foot diameter rocket that we were eventually going to create, and then we were mainly testing the engine for that. So that was one of the coolest things I got to work on.
Wow, I think like rocketry is really what gets everyone excited into space, because I was interested in space because of the Air and Space Museum when I was a little kid, but I got back into space because of a rocketry club that I joined in 7th grade. And so I feel like whenever you see those rockets flying, it just kind of ignites an excitement, which I definitely think that you also had. So that's awesome to hear. And I was also, in your profile, when I was reading a little bit about you, I learned that you applied to be a part of the UCI rocket project for 3 quarters in a row, and you got rejected at like all the times that you applied there, but you didn't give up, and you showed over the summer and helped out wherever you could join in the project. Which, when I read that, I was really inspired, because a lot of people take rejection too seriously into their heart, and they're like, oh, okay, if they don't want me, I'm not going to go. So seeing your passion was like amazing. And eventually you ended up joining the avionics team and became the launch vehicle's lead and then the project manager there. Could you like detail us on this journey and this process for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a little bit of a different experience in college. So I didn't want to be in STEM initially when I went. I started community college, started off as a history major, and then eventually, like you said, got into STEM. So when I transferred to UC Irvine, I really didn't have a lot of technical background, but I just knew that aerospace was what I wanted to do, and rocketry specifically was where I wanted to go into. So I was, I persisted, I persevered. Like you mentioned, I did eventually get on the team, and for the most part, I was just happy to be on the team. I was chilling on avionics. I was learning so much. I learned a lot of hands-on skills. I did a lot of the soldering for our avionics components. I would set up our test stand for when we would do testing, and then all of a sudden, our team was growing, and we had a successful static test fire, and we were like, okay, we need a launch vehicles team, and something that I've always been interested in is kind of how everything works together and how everything's pieced together. And so our team was looking for someone who, wasn't just excited about the propulsion side, but kind of wanted to know how everything worked together. So that's how I got into that position of being the launch vehicles lead, is just having that kind of bird's eye view and like, okay, how is everything going to integrate together and how can we just make a rocket basically, right? And then after that, it led into the project manager position. So it was a great experience, and it really taught me the importance of never giving up, persevering, and also taking advantage of opportunities when they're given to you. Because not gonna lie, when both of the opportunities came up, launch vehicle lead, project manager, I was sorely underqualified. There were many other people on the project who had other rocketry experience, who had internships in the industry. I'd never had an internship, but I was passionate and I worked hard, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna see where this takes me, and I'm gonna put my heart into it and just learn and grow in any way that I can. And it turned out amazing.
Wow, that is like an inspiration. It's a true testament also for what you were saying of never giving up. I think it's so easy to like get put down because of failure, but to see like you overcoming that is it's just amazing to hear. And how were you able to take that failure and kind of turn it into a positive way of thinking of like, I'm gonna reapply. Like what was that like what did you tell yourself that you recommend other students to like an advice that you would give if they faced a similar situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not gonna lie. I had a year where everything I applied to, is my first year at UC Irvine. No matter what I applied to, I got rejected. And at the end of that year, I was pretty like depressed, and I was like, okay, classes are hard. I'm not making much progress. Like, is this even something that I should be pursuing? Not even that I want to pursue anymore. Like, am I even kind of good enough to do this? But I had to just take a hard look at, what I was doing and what I was passionate about, and was like, okay, you know what? I know this is exactly where I want to be. Maybe I'm not making the progress that I want to, but I'm just going to use this as motivation to make myself better. I took classes that maybe weren't in my course schedule to make it, gain more skills. Any hands-on courses that I could, any CAD courses that I could, coding, and I just used that to motivate me to make myself better. And then eventually those doors did open up, and I was better prepared because of the rejections that I had. Honestly, if I had gotten the positions when I'd applied earlier the first time, I don't think I would have been ready. I probably would not have done as well of a job. So, doors open and doors close for a reason, and you just have to stick at it and just make yourself better because of it.
Wow, yeah, I think changing that mindset of maybe of the negative way and looking at it maybe in the positive direction of how much self-growth you've had during that period definitely is just a different way of thinking, which I think is going to help a lot of, especially high school students as well. I know there's a lot of time to get rejections. It's just hard. And, as I was mentioning in your intro, you first actually, after out of high school, went to community college. And I'm curious to hear, because there's a lot of students who do choose the track of community college, or some students who don't know the value of actually going to community college, and they get really stressed out about college itself. So could you tell us a little bit more of this experience and why you would recommend taking that track for some students who are considering it?
Absolutely. I am a huge proponent of community college. Unfortunately, it does have some stigmas attached to it. And a lot of people, oh, I would never even consider community college. And they really don't give it a second thought. I can 100% say if I had gone straight to university, I would not be where I'm at today. Community college offers you the ability to kind of discover yourself in a much less high pressure environment. Like I said, I started off as a history major. After my first semester, I knew that was not for me. And I had the ability to take the time that I needed and just discover myself and discover my interests. And it's so much cheaper. I literally probably tried out 7 different majors. I took business classes, I took biology classes, I took, all of the math classes. And finally, when I was able to discover aerospace and, had that astronomy class and took that tour of Northrop Grumman, I was able to know without a shadow of a doubt, like that's what I wanted to do, because I had tried everything else. And, business was great, but it was just boring. And same with biology, like they didn't have the same interest for me. So I knew that, okay, I'm going to stick with this one. And like the discussion we are having earlier, half the reason why I was able to push through and keep going was because I knew if I switched my major, I wasn't going to be as happy as I was, because I had switched my major, and I knew that this is where I wanted to be. So like I said, community college has so many great, not only is it cheaper, not only does it give you that time and less high pressure environments, but the relationships that you are able to create with professors and with other students, because, you know, I went to UC Irvine when I transferred. Those classes were a minimum of 100 students. I don't think I took a class less than 100 students in a class size. So many of them were up to like 300-400 students. And I know it's different now with COVID, but the community college classes, I don't think I took a class with over 35 or 40 students. So, and many of them would drop out throughout the year. So you get really close with professors and you get really good mentoring experiences. I have a couple professors who definitely played really important roles in my career development, my academic development, wrote many letters of recommendation for me and really helped me along the way. And you just don't get those same relationships as easily in a university. So that's my spiel. Everyone should at least consider community college. It's a great choice.
Thank you for shedding light on that. I feel like a lot of individuals that, whether I read about or see on social media or I interview, have not actually went through that path. I think it's very stigmatized, like you were saying, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's community college," but like, there's actually like literally nothing wrong with going to community college. There's so many different opportunities you get through that, positive experiences, and I definitely thank you for bringing that into light, and kind of like destigmatizing community college. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that it was a great experience and you're able to still discover your experience for aerospace engineering. Another question that I did have for you was surrounded around women in STEM. I'm a huge follower on you on Twitter. I like absolutely love your work that you do on social media. And a lot of the times I do notice that in your tweets, you say that it sucks to be a woman in STEM, which I've heard many stories that kind of are testament to that statement, whether it be you're the only girl in a physics classroom, or you're known as like the mean or the evil person, or whether it be because of harassment in workplaces. It's crazy that even to this day, females are facing a lot of discrimination in the STEM industries, though it's slowly getting better. So I'm curious to hear what are your experiences as a female in STEM?
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny you bring up my social media, and I know the specific tweet that you're talking about, and it did spark some really good conversations. And it was interesting to see how a lot of people don't want women to talk about their experiences in STEM, but a lot of times, I think that's a really important element that is actually missing, and the reason why we don't have as many females in STEM. I think of it as kind of like a marathon. Like if you just go into a marathon completely unprepared and no one has told you what you're going to expect, there's no way you're going to be as successful as someone who told you, okay, go train for a few months, go do this, and this exercise routine, and then come back and try the marathon. You're going to be so much better prepared, and you're going to have a better chance to succeed. So that's why I do try to shed light on, hey, it's not always sunshine and roses to be in this industry as a woman. But I also try to balance that out with, it's an incredible industry to be in, and I don't ever want to discourage anyone from coming in. I just want them to be as prepared as possible. My personal experiences, I've definitely experienced, the good old boys club and a little bit of the sexism. We obviously have it a lot better than a lot of the women have had it in the past, but it does still exist. Whether it be, I had the opportunity of doing a short program at a very well-known space agency. It was a short program, but I was there for about 4 days, and it was for a little Mars robot competition, and there was 4 teams of individuals, about 10 people on each team, and maybe one girl on each team. So about a 10% ratio. It's pretty typical for aerospace. And one of the mentors walked in the room. He was pretty high up in this agency, and he walked around to all the tables and would shake hands with only the men at the table. And I was in the far corner of the room. We were going to be the last table he came over to introduce himself to. And I was noticing this, and the other girl on my team was noticing this. And I was like, yep, nope, that stops here. So he came over to our table. He shook the hands of all the men at the table, and he started to walk past me. I stood up, shook his hand, introduced myself, and I was like, no, that's done. I later ran into him about a year later, I ran into him again, and he like saw me, came up to me, he was like, "Oh, you're doing, I'm so proud of you. You're doing great things. Like, when are you gonna come back? When am I gonna see you here again?" So I it's just little things like that that I think in this industry, a lot of stuff gets overlooked because it's been done for so long. But that doesn't mean that it should be done, and that doesn't mean that it's going to be necessarily hard to change. Someone just needs to stand up, look it in the eyes, and change it. Um, so it definitely it has its moments, but it's also the most fulfilling and amazing industry that I think that you can kind of work in right now, especially with all the work being done. We had Starship stacked today, and just all of the incredible things that all these space companies are doing, and it's just so exciting to be in the industry right now.
Wow, I like from that like mini story that you just did tell us, it brought me a lot of confidence in myself and taught me something. It's shocking to hear that it's still, present in today. And the fact that you like stood up for yourself and you weren't afraid to do that, that takes a lot of courage. I know if I was in that situation, I probably would have hesitated. So it's really like it's nice to get that reassurance and be like, the right thing is to stand up for yourself and what's right. And I think that's definitely going to change a lot of people's perspectives on the situation. I know it changed definitely mine today, right now. I feel a little bit more empowered than before. And, also shedding light on what's actually happening. I think being prepared, like you were saying mentally before, will help you actually stay through the rest of the race instead of dropping out in the middle. A lot of females go into college with a physics degree and then they drop out. They don't finish, they don't come out of college with a physics degree. The number of female who do apply obviously is a much less ratio, but the people who even graduate with a STEM degree is much less. And this is just because of the experiences that they had. So kind of warning female beforehand is definitely the right thing. And I'm so glad that you're doing this through the platform that you have on social media. The next question that I do have is, because you faced all these experiences as a female in STEM, what advice, which you've already given a few, but what like advice would you give for female who are trying to pursue a track in the STEM industry?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice I have is just stick with it. It's hard, but it's rewarding. And when you finally do get that piece of paper, get that job, like it's 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 so fulfilling and it's so rewarding. Definitely, one of the other biggest pieces of advice that I try to give is get a a group of people that surround you and encourage you. And obviously, it is hard to find some girlfriends in STEM. If you can find some good ones, like hold on to them. But also a good group of guy friends, which sometimes can be hard to find, but they're worth their weight in gold. Like just a group of people who can not only encourage you, but also tell you when to slow down and when to keep you in check, because it's really easy when you are trying to prove yourself to kind of overextend yourself and say yes to too many things and work a little too hard sometimes. And so also getting people in your life that are like, okay, why don't you go take a nap and go get some sleep? You need to slow down a little bit, sis. That's extremely important. And those people who can be like, okay, you know what, block out the haters. You don't need to listen to what they're saying. It's not true. It's not true. So having that in your life is really, really important. Um, and also knowing your boundaries, knowing when you can say yes to more things and knowing when you need to say no. That's a really difficult thing to judge sometimes. And like I said, when you're out there, you're trying to make your way in this industry, it's really easy. I'm definitely guilty of overextending myself, and my mental health has suffered at certain points. So knowing that balance so that you can succeed is really important.
Yeah, it's like four amazing pieces of advice that you just gave right there, which is a lot of things that we think that we should do, and then a lot of times it like kind of goes past our mind. So definitely having and building a proper support system, whether it be family or different friend groups, definitely important for you in order to just make sure you're on track, you're not burning yourself out. I feel like that's become a huge thing during the pandemic, where people are feeling like they don't have any drive anymore, and you definitely don't want to ever come to that point where everything stops. So definitely, I agree with that. And so, did you have any obstacles when you were trying to pursue, like when you decided you want to go into the aerospace industry? Did you have obstacles that kind of hindered or changed your path into the industry, or like the way you decided to follow your career?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was, entering the career, one of the biggest obstacles was kind of just the way that I got there, right? So I was in once I got to university, I was in the room with hundreds of people who had, graduated straight from high school and come straight to college. And I was 3 to 4 years older than everyone else in the room, or I didn't have any of that technical background. So just having to kind of work double time to catch up with all of my peers, I think was a huge obstacle. And I had someone ask me in an interview once, like, what makes you stand out from the rest of your peers? And I was like, I know it's a cliche, but literally working hard, because I literally had to, like I said, double time teach myself to catch up with a lot of people. And just knowing again what to focus on, what it's easy to see a lot of, I don't know how to CAD, I don't know how to solder, I don't know the basics of, I didn't grow up building cars, I didn't grow up, building computers, and just knowing that that didn't invalidate me and the experiences I did had, and that I did still have something to bring to the table, and also that those things can be learned. And sometimes they're not even valuable skills to have. It's just a common thing that everyone has, but that doesn't mean that you need to have it. And yeah, that was something that I had to overcome.
Yeah, that's definitely reassuring because that's a feeling a lot of students have. And I know a lot of students, whether it be a similar situation or something different, can definitely relate. I hear a common one where high school students are like, I'm not like naturally smart, so I have to work twice as
Mm-hmm.
hard as the peers who get it in an instant. So definitely I'm sure a lot of students out there can definitely relate with what you're saying. And what helps you become knowledgeable about the industry? Once you were in university, you're part of various internship opportunities, different programs like you were mentioning. So where did you find these opportunities, and how do you suggest for other students to seek similar opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I want to touch on something you said about how people feel like they're not naturally smart. That is, one of the things that I learned in college was the people that you think are naturally smart and just kind of tend to show up and look like they have all of the answers. What you don't see is them in the library until 3 a.m., like pounding out their homework and studying the hardest out of everyone. So, naturally smart, it does have a place in a context, but honestly, more times than not, the most successful people are the people that are working the hardest and spending the most time on their homework and like putting the work in. Um, I'm sorry, can you repeat your question? I just
Oh
wanted to
yeah, no,
mention that.
that's a great point because I know like this happens a lot of times to me as well. People are always like, how do you like do this good on your exams? I'm like, I
Mhm.
studied like all of yesterday for this exam. It's not like I just came in, walked in, and took the exam and got a grade that I liked. It's like
Nope.
I had to put in so much work. And I feel like
Yeah.
people tend to overlook that and they just think, oh, because, oh, this is another stereotype where it's like, oh, you're Asian, so you have natural genes to like take a good test. That's not true. And I definitely think
Mhm.
that there's a lot of stereotypes when it comes to whether it be gender or, your ethnicity. And I definitely think that those are false and they're only, I guess, excuses to your like to yourself to not work as hard. I think that's what I think it is, and I'm always trying to break stereotypes continuously. So definitely thank you for bringing that point up. But what I was asking you was, how did you figure out where to look for internship opportunities and other programs that you recommend other students to look towards?
Yes, great question. So the places that I would look is for scholarship and internship opportunities are obviously some of the biggest opportunities that people look for. Um, Most of the time, so this is, obviously more geared to those who are entering college. But most of the time your school will have a website, and that website will list out specific scholarships that you can apply to. You like not even outside scholarships, but one specifically for your school. So especially for community college is where I got a lot of scholarships. I just randomly applied, and you never know what you're going to get out of that. So definitely look at what your school has as resources, because they're gonna be more willing to give that to you because you go to your school, right? If that makes sense. When it comes to internship opportunities, making a list of every single company that you can think of, do a Google search for whatever industry that you are looking into, and even industries that are just kind of parallel to your industry. You never know what opportunities you're going to get, but just like I said, Google lists of companies and then just go through all those companies and apply for as many as you can. Chegg actually has some really great resources as well. They'll normally release like lists of companies that maybe had internships posted later, or just that's a really great website to look for resources as well. Also on the internship note though, uh, you don't be feel bad if you apply and you don't get an internship. I can't tell you how many people I know that literally applied to hundreds and hundreds of internships and maybe got one or two callbacks, if any. Personally, I applied 3, 4 years in a row for internships. I never got a single internship. So, whether or not you get an internship does not mean that you're going to be successful or not successful in industry. And that's the biggest stress that I see worrying college students is they're like, oh my gosh, I'm a sophomore, I don't have an internship yet, I'm never going to graduate and get a job and not going to be successful. Like, that's not true. Your college experience is what you make of it, like anything. So if you don't get an internship, you're going to be okay. Just it's about other experiences as well. That's not the most important thing in the world.
That's definitely important advice. I also think that what you were saying about how your success rate of getting an internship doesn't relate and correlate to your success in the industry is definitely a point to really stress. And I definitely agree with what you were saying. I'm also the type of person who will apply for so many things and would consider it a win if I got into one. So similar situation. I always like go by the quote because I'm a basketball player. I always go by the quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. It was said by like an Olympic medalist, I think. And when I heard that quote, I was like, that's so true. If I don't even apply for the internship, I have a 0% chance of getting it. Might as well
Yep.
apply, take a few minutes of my day to do it. And if I don't get in, it's fine. But at least I didn't give up. So I definitely think that that's really important for everyone to really wrap their heads around. And kind of diving a little bit away from your journey, as we kind of got a little bit in depth to, I'm curious also to learn more about your interests and what excites you about the space industry. So, my question for you is what excites you and what makes you nervous about the future of the space industry?
That's a great question. Um, so something that excites me about the space industry, I'm definitely a huge space nerd. I am all about, the fact that we're going back to the moon, the fact that we're heading to Mars. I think all of these things are so, so exciting. And I can't wait to be a part of and see what happens next. Something that kind of worries me is the fact that it seems like some companies are overlooking the steps that need to be made to maybe properly get to where we want to go. So let me explain that a little more. So, we want to go to Mars, and a lot of people are gung ho, like Mars 2030, Mars, let's go, let's go, let's go. But space is really hard, and we're literally doing things for the first time ever. We put a man on the moon. We haven't built anything on another planet before. We've never tried to live on another planet before. We literally haven't done this before. And the fact that we have a moon right here, we can get there in a couple days, and we can use that for some like iterative testing for trying out all of these things that we want to do on another planet. I think we need to shift our focus a little more to the moon before we get gung ho to another planet, because it takes 7 months to get to Mars, and that's at its closest apogee. Like, or that's probably, yeah, when it's the closest, it's about 7 months to get there. And so, we put humans on there, something goes wrong, it's literally going to be the Martian, but it might not turn out as well. So yeah, I just hope we turn our focus a little bit more to the moon and practice there. It's a fantastic playground for us, and I hope we utilize it to its fullest.
That's definitely a very unique perspective. I've heard a lot of like responses in this question, and that's definitely a unique one, which I actually think that's like the most obvious, like, yeah, wait, you're right, sort of answer. It's like the moon is right there. We've been to it, and we kind of stopped going to it almost. And I'm so excited. The Artemis mission is really exciting because not only does it represent a lot of diversity with the first female going to the moon, as well as people of color going to the moon. I think it's really exciting, but also just like getting back to our roots and being like, okay, so we can go to the moon. This is what we can do in the moon before we had to go, really straight to the Mars. I think it's really exciting that we want to send humans to Mars. I think that's very exciting. I would love to be a part of that crew. And, I think it'd be crazy to go to Mars, but of course there are a lot of precautionary steps that need to be taken beforehand, which I definitely thank you for bringing light to that situation. And so, my last and final question to you, now that we were able to learn a little bit more about your journey, as well as like more of your insights of what excites you about the industry, You kind of already answered this question, but just this is a final question I usually ask all my interviewees, which is what final piece of advice would you give young students across the world regarding their pursuit of a passion, the STEM field, space industry, really any career that they want to pursue? Something that you wish someone had told you when you were in middle school, high school, or early college years?
Yeah, I think the final piece of advice would be any stereotypes that you have about it, any stereotypes that you think that you need to follow the path that you think is going to make you the most successful in STEM, forget about it. Don't worry about it. Make your own path, blaze your own way. You can be successful in your own time and just doing what you love. You don't have to try and recreate someone else's success because most of the time that's not going to work for you anyways because everyone is so unique. You have your own skills, your own capabilities, and you're going to be your most successful when you do you.
That is perfect advice that really encapsulates the whole purpose of the interviews, which is to show that there's so many different paths. And definitely your story is so unique, but it's also a testament that really there's not one path. You don't have to start off at like a prestigious university in order to be a part of the, Northrop Grumman, like an amazing space organization. Like you were able to go through a very different path, but still find your way to what you love to do. And I think showing that uniqueness in yourself, I think that's just amazing. So I want to thank you so much, Ms. Cope, for taking your time and sharing your journey with us. I know I was really empowered with some of the things that you said, and I know I definitely have learned how to behave in the future if I face certain circumstances. So I want to thank you so much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for doing these interviews.